Hi guys, it's Colin here again. Welcome to another of my videos. Um, so I literally just woke up, so I'm making this because I promised myself I was going to do this yesterday and then totally forgot. So without further ado, I'll dive into what I have for you today. So I'm continuing from where I stopped the last video I made. The last video I made, we looked at we're just playing around with components in React and how to pass props from um, one component to another. That's like from the main app component to another component that's being used in the app component. And that's how usually you pass props from parents down to children. So the last time we used had coded or we actually had to display like the amount of cards that we wanted in the app component and then started giving each of those cards um, props or attributes that serve as props in card component. But today we're going to do it a little bit different. Um, we are going to, by the way, using Vite app. I no longer use Crazy React app. It's for me, it's faster. I think I've said that before. Okay, scrap that. So, like I said, what we'll be trying to do today is basically because so this is our app component, right? And then we have our card component. I hope you can see this. Let me open this out a little bit wider. So this is our card component. We have some basic styles here, right? For our card is a normal card, not the normal card shell. Eventually, I'm just going to show you how it looks like, how the UI looks like eventually. So let's start our application. So I'll say npm run dev. So what I would, while that is kicking off, what I like to do is today instead of hard coding uh, values directly into the components as attributes and displaying like the amount of cards you want to take in data from somewhere like a source, something like a database, right? And then use the values we have in that database to act as content on the cards, right? So what we would do, I've already created something like database for us called data.js. It's an array of objects that has and the object has some properties um, like the ID property, the BG property, the eval property, the large text property, the small text property, and the null property. So our card will be needing these content inside of it. So if let me start my app. So my card will be needing these values, right? um, just because I created this myself, so I actually know the values that will be needed in the card. So if you look at our card component, you see that it's asking for props, which is taking props, and using those prop values. Remember, I said props. Then there's an object, so you access the object with props using the dot notation. So you are using the prop values for different things here. You're using it here for a background color in one of the contents in our card. We're also using props dot large text for something else. Let me so while that is coming up, let's also you're also using props dot large text. Okay, we've talked about that. Props dot small text for something else. We're also using um, this value eval to determine whether to display something or not. So different ways are using props in this particular um, example in this tutorial. So it's going to be very beneficial for you if you're just starting out React to follow this. Right, so I think you should check out my previous video to really understand all I've done here. But this is just some I just have some basic styling on this card. Right, if you want to really follow through, I'll just um I might leave the link in the description to check out this particular styling I have, but it's not really too much. I feel like before you go into React, you should already have some basic understanding of HTML and CSS. So styling of this shouldn't be a problem for you, right? So we have our app up and we have hello displaying my screen as an H1 tag, right? So I want to bring in this card components. Remember we're dealing with functional components now. So I'm bringing in this card components into our app here. So what we first of all do is to import our card from, you can find it, I think it's inside components, assets components, and then inside the components find card. So save that. Let me just bring this to one part of the screen and shift this to the other side so we can be seeing a little bit of both. Right, so we've imported the card, but we haven't used it yet in our application. So how do we do that? We're going to use it to call it as a function here, and this will call functions in React, call functions like a GSS tag, but this time we use capital letters to begin. So well, whatever name you call it here, as well as going to be called here, and it's convention that you use capital letters. If you do not use a capital letter here, it's not going to work out for you here as a component, right? I had that issue first when I started out. So for the card component, this has to be capital letter, right? And you're exporting this as card, and you're using it here as that. So you can see that we have a simple card component here, right? So we wouldn't be able to see the border of this card now because it's blending in with the background color of the app. So what I'll do is I import the styles for this app inside this place. So I have already some styling done for the app, basic styling. So what we have here is just basic. I have some background color here, and now a height of 100 view height, max width of 100 view width, display flex, image flex direction column, and just bring everything to the center and wrap it. And I have a card component here that we're going to use really soon. This container, we are not going to make use of it in this tutorial, so I'm just going to comment them out. So let's stop at work. Let's comment roll out. Make this. This is the how to comment. Okay, I already have some comment in here, so let me just do this. That's what you want then. Okay, so comment that out and comment the rest out because we're not making use of them in this particular tutorial. So all we need here is just the card and the app, and then this is just for some style resets. So let's go back to the app.js and import that here. So we want a background so that we can see the card outline, because the card has a background of white. We want to have different background for the app. So let's say import a style. So that's app.css. So we already have something pointing at this guy. So I just save that to help us work it out well. So like I said, gives us the background color, brings everything to middle, and then gives the height and the width. Right. So now, how do we eventually? For those of us who do not understand what's happening here, I think you need to go back and look at the previous video, or maybe take a tutorial on CSS. Right. But what do we want to do here? Like I said, we want to have this card displaying more than once, watching these components. For example, I showed us in the last tutorial the example we were looking at. There were 6 cards that had different um, values in them, but they were all looking alike. So how do we make this work? We already have something in our database, right? Usually our database will be in JSON, but this is, when I say JSON, I mean JavaScript object notation, but this is just basic JavaScript array of objects, right? And then we have some objects inside with different values, and we have 6 of them, right? So whenever we want to make use of an array in React, there's a way React works with arrays. It's very friendly with arrays. If you give it an array, it helps you to arrange it the way you like it to be arranged, right? Um, for example, let me just give a quick example. If I say const array, and then I say array, I say colon, and we put a space in between it, and put in my name as solid CRCD, and some random names. Let me see, Nani, let me just leave that there, and then I come here and just put it in some kind of tag, like a h1 tag, and then I just call array directly here. Remember, when you want to call in a JavaScript item or JavaScript data type into a JSX, then you're returning, you need to put it in curly braces. So if I say this, see how this displays nicely for us, right? So React knows how to deal with arrays. So if I add more values to it, you can see something like, I don't know why I'm using this word, but keep adding stuff. Let me add another word. Okay, let me add something that's say money. Right, so it helps us to display it where it doesn't show as an array. It helps us to do it the way it wants to be done. So let me remove this. Right, now, so we want to bring in that array from that other place where we have it in data.js, and what we want to do is, with that array, we want to use the .map method to display it. So what does the .map method help us do? So the .map method iterates through an array, and this time is going to be an array of objects, right? It iterates through this array, and for every item in the array, in our case we have an object. So every item in this array, we have 6 items, and those items are objects. So for every item in the array, the .map method does something which is going to be defined by you. right? So whatever you want the map method or whatever you want to be done on every item is what you define using the map method. So if you want to log every item to the console, you can do that. If you want to do something with every item, you can also do that. Right? So but for this case, since we have objects in the array, what we want to do is taking every property of the objects and pass them as properties to that card component. So what we'll first of all start with is, let's just say that for every item in this array, let's display a card. Right, so for every item in this array, let's display one card. So that's what I'm first of all doing. So let's start small. So let's grab this card. But before we even do that, let's import that data.js file into our app. Let's call it data, right? From, I think I'll find it in components, and there it is. Right, so we have access to that already. So let's log into the console. Let's see if it's present. Console.log data. Let's be sure it's there. So I'll save that and come into my console to check what I have. Okay, there it is, data, and we have all the values we need in here. So that's cool, that's awesome. So let's use that array and let's do something with the array using the map method on array. Okay guys, so let's you can actually do your map method outside the return statement, and then passing the array is going to return. So I forgot to mention that the map method returns an array, right? So does whatever you want to each item of the array and returns a new array of the modified item. So whatever you did with every item, returns a modified array. So we are going to be getting back an array, right? And like I said, React knows how to handle arrays. So whenever you give React an array, it knows how to handle it. So I'm going to bring it inside here and use JavaScript inside the JSX. So that's how we escape from JSX to use JavaScript. So I have access to data, right? And I'm going to say data.map, right? And let's just use some safety. But we've already seen our map, our data already, so there's no need to worry. But if you're going to be working with a database or something that you require to fetch, first of all, then you would likely want to use that to say if the data is present, then do the map function on it. But let's just go further and use the callback function in the array. Yeah. So in this argument part or parameters here, argument part, you want to pass in an argument, and that argument represents each item in the array. So like we just called it now item. Let's just call each argument an item, right? So they're going to do something with each items. So we want to do only one thing in this callback function. So you can just pass it down there directly, but just to make it readable, we're going to pass it into that normal brackets. We could also use curly braces, but if you use the curly braces, we need to use the return statement, and that is going to make your work a little bit verbose. So let's just do this and pass the card component. That's supposed to be card, right? So this is going to map through or iterate through the data array and return card or return a card component for every item. So we are expecting to see 6 cards because we have 6 items in this data. So I'm going to save that, and then we have 6 cards. Wow, is it not styled the way I want it to be styled? So what do we do? I'll check my app.css. Sorry about the police noise, guys. Okay, so I'll check, and I think yeah, you can make use of this card rule here and bring it in. So I'll just grab all this and put it in a div that has a class of, let me just drop it there and give it the class name of, I think it's card. I just saw my card. So if I say save, you're going to have, yeah, this is what exactly what I want. Okay, now let me drop this down a little bit. Yeah, for space. So you, if you remember in the last video, we had to use this card, like duplicate this card like 6 times for it to display the way you wanted it to display, right? But this time we have using just one, and the reason why I'm showing 6 times is because we are using the map method that is taking in items from an array, right? And there are 6 of them. So this is cool. So how do we make this card to be exactly what we want it to be? So if you look into our card component once again, like I said, we are using the props to do a lot of things, to display a number here so we can know how many percent completed that particular card or project, whatever thing it is. And we are using this eval value to determine should we have more than 2 hash boxes, or should we have a third one. So I think this eval is in boolean. If true, then we can have a third one. If false, we wouldn't have a third one. So this is a conditional rendering. So this is rendered conditionally. If this is true, then that is good. And we have props to small text. Also, this, I think this is basically some text, and also basically some text here. And then using props to bg. This bg represents a color in our data.js. It determines what the color of this guy is. Now it has a particular color now, this tomato, because we have styled it inside here to have a color of tomato, right? But using the CSS specificity, we have specificity rule. We have seen that if you put in a style directly into the tag, it overrides the initial style we give to it. So this is not having any style yet, any color yet, until we pass in the props to bg to it. So it is waiting for us to do that. So why don't we just do that and stop talking? Yeah, but how do we do that, right? The card does not have access to the data.js, right? The only component that has access is this app, and thankfully the card component is a child of the app component, so we can pass in props directly from here. Then when did it become a child? It became a child when we passed in the card component into the app component. So card can see everything happening in the app component. Alright, so we can take in information from the data, the JS, and pass it as props to the have component. And how do we do that? Remember, this data is an array of objects, right? An array of objects, and each object has all these values attached to them, right? So we can see that we can take in um, using the dot notation, we can get all these values that we need. So we can, all we can do is to, like we said, use, for us to pass props, you're going to use the attribute style of HTML to pass in props. So good enough, our props have the same kind of names as it is in the data.js. So for you not to be confused, your props has to be used for it. The name you're going to give, or the attribute name of your attribute should be the props name they're using in the components, while the value should be the one that's coming from the place you're getting your data from, right? For this tutorial, we have the same name, but I don't want you to get this confused. If you have a different name, you should use a different name. So because we have BG here and we have large text here, and here we have also BG, large text, and all those things. We're going to use those things as the values and the names of our attributes. But before we do that, if I check into our console, I believe we'll be getting an error here, and the error is telling us that each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So it's expecting a prop named key, right? And it has to be unique. So we have prepared for this already. And how do we prepare for this? We give each card a unique property in the data.js, and the unique property was an ID. So for every card is a unique ID to it. So we just give them numbers, right? What could be more unique than numbers? So ID of 1, ID 2. So they all have an ID. So how do you pass in a key prop? As the name sounds, key is the prop. Then you have to pass in a value of, so we go into the item object and pass in the prop of ID. So if I save this here and come back and check my console, I believe our error should be gone. Let me refresh. Alright, see, our error is gone. So let's now pass in more props to our card. So we can now start passing props. Let's see, the first one we had was ID, the next one BG, eval, large text, small text. So all we could do is very simple, just say first thing was BG, right? BG equals in curly braces, because you are taking in a JavaScript object, item dot bg. That's it, the same name. And the next thing we have was, let me confirm, eval. So we have eval, we see item dot eval. Next thing we have is, sorry, I have to check again, large text equals item dot large text yeah. Next thing we have is small text. So I didn't check again, small text, and is equal to item dot small text. And I think we have one more thing, yeah, num. That's num equals item dot num. Right, so if I save this, it's going to look like magic, but it's really not magic. Right, so I'm passing in all these guys here. This has a value of whatever each property in, or whatever each item has. So for the first card, this ID is 1, and it displays a card of ID 1. Then the next card has an ID of 2, it displays another card of ID 2. The next card has an ID of 3, just like that. And that's why React wants you to give it a unique prop. And then for every of these other guys here, so on the first um, on the first iteration, it sees this object and then takes in all these values and passes them into the card here as props, and then it uses them for props in this card component. So it takes in BG. First BG here is orange, so we're expecting the first card to have this guy should be orange. The next guy should have a BG of light blue. You can see how I'm naming my naming convention is here camel case. Right. So the second guy we should be expecting a light blue for the BG, which is this guy, and the next one should have green, so this guy here should be green. So, and every other thing follows suit. Alright, so let me just quickly save this without flogging the dead horse, and then we should have everything we want: orange, light blue, green. So this is just a simple tutorial of, so for those of us who do not understand why we needed that eval, so like I said, this eval here was used to determine whether we should have 3 cards or 2 cards. So for the ones that had eval values of true, like this first one and this last one here, the other ones had eval values of false. So those who had eval values of true display 3, I call them hash icons or hash boxes. So that was the determining factor for if you're going to have 2 or 3. Alright, I think with this we have come to the end of this tutorial. See how easy it is to work with React. Instead of designing all these cards one after the other, because they have different components and they look alike, instead of designing them one after the other and displaying them in React allows us to use components to do that. And also, instead of doing them one after the other, and then like in the other video we did, and passing props into them one after the other, hard-coded props, you can use the map method to look through or retrieve through an array of objects, something like we have here. So if I wanted to add a 7th card, it wouldn't be difficult, right? You know what to do. Just add a 7th value here. Let me make that 8 and change this to 7. Change this to 8 so that the ID remains unique. But because of our styling, you're going to see that a card comes up. So these values are same with this last one. So that's just how it is, right? So let me take it back to what we had before. Yeah, so back to 6. So if you want to add, in case maybe your client says, let's add more cards to this, 6 cards aren't enough, let's make them 7, let's make them 8, let's make them 100. You know how to do that without having to style over and over again. You just add more content to your array over here. Alright, so this is it for this video, guys.